Now, we talk about the Super Bowl. We talk about Kyle Shanahan. I felt like those were important topics to get out the way. Mahomes, after the Chiefs win, said, it's the start of one. We are not done. When asked a question about the Chiefs dynasty, do you get the sense that this is a dynasty? Because I think it is a dynasty.
We just talked about this.
But do you
Didn't we talk about this already?
We didn't talk about it enough.
We didn't talk about it.
Do you get the sense?
No.
Do you get the sense that this is just the beginning?
For
them?
To start.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it is. I look at the Chiefs, man, and really, I just have to give a round of applause to Brett Veach. Let's just talk about the 5-year run, right?
You're about to go glaze from top to bottom?
The
Brett Veach is a GOAT.
The other 5-year run we're comparing it to that was one of the best in NFL history was the Patriots from 2014 to 2018. They won 3 Super Bowls. They did a whole lot of things. From 2019 to 2023, or 2018 to 2023, the Chiefs are 3-time Super Bowl champs, 4-time AFC champions, 1 Super Bowl loss, 1 AFC championship loss. This is one of the best runs that we've seen in a 5-year run. And I feel like what needs to be celebrated more is how this roster is being built out season to season, the adaptability. In the past 2 seasons, they traded Tyreek Hill. It gave Mahomes one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football outside of Kelsey. So Mahomes suffered an ankle sprain in the playoffs last year against the Jaguars and still was able to win a Super Bowl for the Chiefs. This year, the Chiefs wide receivers led the league in drops, and their offensive tackles led the league in penalties. You don't have much margin for error, yet you come back down 10 points and you win another Super Bowl, and now this team now has 3. And you look at this team's history before Mahomes got here, it's clear that he's the biggest reason why they've been able to win as much as they've had. He became the first ever player to win a Super Bowl while having the largest cap hit in NFL history. Last year, he was the only guy in a while to win an MVP and win a Super Bowl in the same year.
First player ever.
Brett Veach's drafts. 2021, he drafted Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey in the 2nd round, Trey Smith in the 6th. Rebuilt the offensive line that year because they signed Joe Thuney in free agency. 2022, they draft Trent McDuffie. They trade up in front of the Bills to snag Trent McDuffie because the Bills were eyeing him too. They drafted George Karlaftis in the 1st round as well. Brian Cook in the 2nd, who was injured for this playoff run, but is a good safety. Leo Chanel in the 3rd round, who had the highest PFF grade of any Chiefs defensive player in the Super Bowl. Joshua Williams in the 4th, Jalen Watson and Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th. In this draft, Rashee Rice in the 2nd, who was their best receiver in this run, and Chamari Connor, a safety in the 4th round, who was making some really good plays for them in replacement of Brian Cook. 12 starters in the past 3 drafts they found. And then you look at their free agency. In 2023, signing Drew Tranquill, Mike Edwards, both started in the Super Bowl. Jawan Taylor, Charles Omenihu, who was hurt and didn't play. Like, this team is able to replace players that they once lost. After 2021, they replaced Tyrann Mathieu with Justin Reed. The ability for Brett Veach to, on the fly, make adjustments to know what we need on the roster is why you can trust this Chiefs team to be a dynasty for years to come and to build off this. Drew mentioned it earlier, to potentially 3-peat, because I don't think next year this receiver room is going to get worse. The defense has some huge question marks because L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones are free agents, and those are 2 of the better players at the position in the NFL. But the way Brett Veach is drafted, the free agents that he's signed, it's hard to say that you don't trust them to continue to build a roster around Mahomes and continue to win at a very high level.
Yeah, it's an organizational thing to be a dynasty, right? It's not just quarterback, it's not just coach or DC or one specific player. It's from the top down. If it wasn't for Brett Veach in this front office and the scouting department being able to have the foresight to be like, we got to get ahead of Buffalo because we know we're going to be seeing Buffalo year after year. We know they want a corner. We want McDuffie. It could change really the whole landscape of the NFL. They get McDuffie instead of Kaiir Elam, who at the end of this postseason run was getting benched, who wasn't even on the field, and Trent McDuffie just turned in an all-pro season and was one of the best players in the Super Bowl, period. Patrick Mahomes included. He was probably the most impactful, if not second behind Chris Jones in that game. To say they're just starting a dynasty is scary to think about, that it's been 5 seasons, or I guess 6 for Mahomes. You have 3 Super Bowls. You have 4 appearances. Every single run has been a minimum of an AFC championship game, and he's just getting better year after year. You know, the fact that it took him till year 3 to really understand what defenses are giving him, to get to this point now where he is just so great with his legs on those third downs. The big rush he had in, was it overtime, or was the last drive of the fourth quarter, where he gets 15, 20 yards. Joel starts screaming. He thinks he's about to go for the 25-yard touchdown. He ends up short on the 10 or 15-yard line. But year after year progressing, and you do see some guys getting older, right? You see Travis Kelce throughout this regular season, who was a bit banged up, but you could tell that his best days are probably behind him. You had the rumors about Andy Reid retiring or not, but we know he's going to come back. But to have such a great front office, it gives me the confidence that they'll be able to replace these guys. I mean, they lost Tyrann Mathieu. They got Justin Reid back, and it's not like they really lost the hitch, right? They came back and their defense is better than it's ever been. You know, they lost Tyreek Hill, and although, good job, that was insane. Although they were never able to really replace Tyreek Hill, they've been able to just do enough around the edges where it was Juju last season who had almost 1,000 yards. And now this season, you draft Rashee Rice in the second round, and down the stretch, he was one of the better receivers in all of football. I mean, he was going on stretches where he was having 80, 90, 100 yards week after week after week, and he came up time and time again during this playoff run. So the ability to, number one, get great players. Number two, at some point during a 15-year run with Patrick Mahomes, you're going to lose these great players, but the fact that you can consistently replace them with rookie contracts and finding guys around the edges in free agency and being able to somewhat mask or replace that production, that's how you become a 1 or 2 time Super Bowl champ, to get into the record books, to getting up there with the Tom Brady's and the New Englands and those dynasties. What they've been doing, it's probably just to start. And Patrick Mahomes right now, he runs the NFL. He owns the NFL. So it's hard to see a time where they're going to be slowing down.
To build off your all's points with Brett Veach, he replaces Frank Clark, who's super expensive, with George Karlaftis. He replaces Jarvis Ward, who leads in free agency, with McDuffie. And he's done it at every single position. Offensive line, so much more than just wide receiver. And like everyone was talking this year, they really miss Juju. It's like, can Rashee Rice be as good as Juju? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, he is better than Juju, and I'm a huge Juju guy right now, and he was way better this year. So they've continued to find veterans on these cheap deals for a 1-year prove it, and then they just find somebody outside of Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney who have really thrived. On
again, you're able to miss on those when you have Patrick Mahomes. You're able to miss on Sky Moore second round.
I think
Toney
it's the
third
number
round
of Sky. You can't wear 24 as a wide receiver.
I agree. That's a DB only number.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rib? Do you think this is the start?
I guess this comes on to me.
Oh, sorry.
Rib doesn't want to talk about it.
He always goes
okay.
before me. Always.
It's all right. Even through Zoom, I should know that. You're 100% right. Now, I said it already. I hate that I'm being forced to repeat myself. Yes, this is a dynasty. 3 championships in 5 years. It says it all. You don't need that third in a row to solidify yourself as a dynasty. This is already a dynasty. If you win 3 in a row, you can solidify yourselves as the best dynasty that ever played football. Most definitely, that's a strong conversation to be had because, if I'm not mistaken, no team has done it in NFL history. So for it to be a 20-year gap where no team has gone back-to-back, for you to become the first team to ever win 3 championships in a row, which is definitely a possibility, so long as this core group of players does stick together. I mean, how can we not, without that third in a row consecutive championship, already talk about a team with 3 and 5 years? They're already a dynasty. That's it. It's already said and done. But Mahomes said it. He doesn't want to call it a dynasty until it's over, which is fine. I understand that. You don't want to jinx a good thing, of course, if you're a Kansas City Chief or a Kansas City Chief fan. But this is most definitely a dynasty. There's no way about it.
The teams that have gone back-to-back, they haven't even reached the Super Bowl the third year. So no one's even gone to 3 straight.
Yep. So this is they fighting history at this point. Yeah, you guys, you know, you guys talked about it a lot. You know, scouting, coaching, and then having that guy. I think that's the 3 most important parts of a dynasty. And of course, being able to move off the veteran guys, the guys who have been there for some time, or the players who have the name but they don't have the ability anymore. They're not as good. Yeah. So I think of course it starts with the coach. Having Andy Reid, having the front office, the scouting department, like Dell's mentioned, from top to bottom in the management office. You just have guys who kind of understand the vision, understand the game plan, and who are working effortlessly on the same page opportunities to create a roster. Then you get the guy. And you get Patrick Mahomes, 50 touchdowns in his first season, fully starting, magnificent greatness, and from there to now, he's been the best quarterback in the league, so you get the guy, and then you just, you build that roster around him. You get Trent McDuffie, you have Snead have a breakout, you have Chris Jones be one of the best defensive tackles in football, you had Travis Kelce, you had Tyreek, you were able to move off Tyreek and still be able to win without him, just having your quarterback adapt and having your offense adapt to a different environment. You miss draft picks, but you still end up getting some good guys in the draft on the defensive, and offensively you haven't been the greatest in terms of the wide receiver room, but then you managed to get a guy like Rashee Rice, who is become a number one for your team, who's been great all year. So you've been able to, kind of have some luck in this, but also be able to just walk into every offseason with a game plan and be able to hit it on most marks. And I think, this dynasty is here. I think this dynasty is going to be here for some time, and dynasties stretch out. You can have a dynasty where, like Brady, you keep Brady and Belichick, that's somewhat of a dynasty, those two guys together. And this is like Mahomes, Andy Reid, Kelce until he retires. They're going to be a constant in the AFC Championship, a constant in the Super Bowl, because they have a formula. They found the formula in their front office, from their front office to the coach and to the quarterback. They understand it, they follow it, and they know how to execute it. And when you have that from top to bottom, it's just really hard to replicate or hard to beat. You have teams like Buffalo who have the quarterback but may not have the coach every game, may not have the defense, the personnel. You have the Bengals who they're the one team that did beat them, but this year they didn't have the health. They weren't the lucky. You have Baltimore who didn't have the coach at the right time in the AFC Championship game, but do have the quarterback. So for the Chiefs, it's just like they always seem to have it clicking at the right time together on the same page, and a lot of these teams just don't have that. You look at the NFC, the Eagles, they didn't have it clicking this year. They don't have the coach. In Dallas, they just fumble all the time. I don't really know what to say about them. And then the Niners, they just, unfortunately, they didn't have the defense and the offense clicking at the same time. Right. But the Chiefs seem to find a way to, always have it clicking at the same time, and that's something you got to give credit to.
They have the experience no one else has, and the fortune the Niners really have not, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's the culture of them, too. Yeah. Like, you get drafted as a rookie, whether you're on the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, you go in, the first person you see is Mahomes or Kelce or Chris Jones or Andy Reid, and the expectation every single year is Super Bowl. The expectation is you're not going to be a bust. Like, look at the lineage of draft picks they've had. All of these guys they've been able to bring in these last few years. You don't want to be that dude that is able to screw up this situation where if I go and play my ass off, I could win multiple Super Bowls. That's not the same with 90% of other franchises when you look at their track record of draft history and it's just bust after bust after bust, or it's guys that have issues off the field, or it's players who get a contract and don't live up to that contract. When you have so much winning in one organization, you want to be a part of it, and you don't want to be that outlier that isn't a part of it. So it's almost an added pressure on you, but it's a good pressure because it's going to make you work harder and want to be part of this team that's going to 3 straight Super Bowls.